Hey, it's Outslam Music, and in this video, I'm going to be doing something a little different than I usually do on my channel. So right now, I'm in Sevierville, Tennessee, and we're going to go to DollyWood within the first week that it's reopened since COVID-19. It'll be really interesting to see what kind of changes and safety precautions they've put in place. So all I know so far is that we bought our tickets online, and since we bought them within the first 4 days of the public reopening, we got them for the children's price, so we got a discount. And I also know that masks are required, so I'm going to put this on and take you guys with me to the park today. And just a little disclaimer, I know that there's a spec like right here. It's literally under the camera lens, like under the glass surface of it. I have no clue how it got there, and it annoys me more than it probably annoys you. So I'm just apologizing in advance. I know that this is here. Sorry about that. The very first sign you see before you even drive into the parking lot of the park is this disclaimer saying DollyWood is not responsible if you get COVID-19. Besides this, I don't think I saw or heard this anywhere else in the park. And when you get to the park, masks are required. They'll provide you with one of the blue paper ones if you don't have your own. Then you wait in a line to go through the temperature screening. They scan your forehead with a non-contact infrared thermometer and give you a pink wristband if you're under 100.4. Then you continue through this line to get on the tram. There are social distancing stickers on the ground throughout the line, and it's supposed to be one party per dot, but no one's really following them, and there's no employees enforcing it either. Before you get on the tram, they give you a pump of hand sanitizer. They repeat this process before all rides as well. While actually riding the tram, they have every other row roped off and seat one party per row. They tell you to keep your masks on during the tram ride and throughout the park, but on the tram is the only time I ever heard an employee explicitly tell people to keep their mask on throughout the park. We spent the entire day at the park, and I only ever heard an employee say something about wearing masks 3 times. On the tram, 1 employee in the park and 1 ride attendant. This is far less frequently than other major parks like Universal, and I feel like it should have been far more often for as many people as I saw walking around wearing their masks incorrectly. When you walk into the park, the first sign you see, right in the flowers, is a sign reminding you to wear your mask. Currently in the park, it's also the Festival of Flowers and Food, so they have a lot of new theming and decorations around the park, especially intricate flower arrangements and topiary sculptures. There's a lot of themed food as well, but for the most part, they seem to be closed throughout most of the day. At the park, all indoor shows are closed. Outdoor shows still occur, and there are a total of 5 running this particular day at the park. 4 were music groups, and 1 was the Birds of America Wings of Prey show. We attended all of these shows, and it was quite an enjoyable experience. 2 of them were at smaller outside venues, this being the Gemtones outside of the Pine Theater and the Wild Roots Band at the Show Street Gazebo. These 2 had performers roped off, or hula hooped off in the case of the Gemtones, from the guests. And there wasn't seating for the guests, but we just found a shaded spot on a ledge and sat there to watch. The first ride we rode was the Rocking Roadway cars. The ride wait was supposedly 15 minutes, but it took us like an hour to get through. In the line, the middle switchbacks were roped off, so groups of guests don't have to wait right next to each other. And there are social distancing stickers here as well, but no one was following them properly. I know at some larger parks they actually have an attendant in the line queue itself, making sure guests follow the social distancing, but they don't have those at DollyWood, and I feel like they could benefit from something like that. Throughout the lines and park, most people aren't wearing their masks properly the full time. I get it. It was 85 degrees, so it's hot and uncomfortable and hard to breathe. I'll admit that I didn't wear mine properly the whole time either. But again, they don't have employees enforcing this rule. Many people would walk around with their nose not covered, or their mask pulled down to their chin, or just not wearing it at all, and no one would say anything. One of the reasons it took us so long to get to the front of the line for Rocking Roadway was because they only had 6 cars on the track. And every hour or so, they had to spray down all the cars with sanitizer and run them through the track empty. They also had only one of the rolling sides actually running. They do the same process of spraying down the cars and running them through empty for all the other rides as well, and many have fewer trains running. Since the lines were so long for Rocking Roadway at about 11 a.m., we didn't ride any more rides until the evening. Some other notable features of the changes from COVID-19 are social distancing signs on observation fences, like around the Eagles. The tables are spread out, and there are constant signs reminding you to socially distance and keep your masks on. But again, besides the signs, no employees tell you to do so if you aren't. There are a few employees, though, that will thank you for wearing your mask properly. I heard this once, and my mom had a few others tell her this. Throughout the park, some walk-through areas are pretty much empty, but others are very full and hard to physically distance. It just depends on the traffic of the area and the park layout, but this could be a potential problem. The next thing we did was the Birds of Prey show. It is an outside show, but it's under a cover, and every other rows of seats are closed. They also tried to seat 1 or 2 parties per row, depending on your group size. For all shows, times are posted on their app. There are no paper maps at the park, but they do have and encourage you to use their app for planning your schedule, directions to each attraction, looking at wait times, and a reminder for events. After this show, we went and watched all the other music shows, and the experience was pretty much the same. After a few shows, we stopped to get some food.
Sorry folks, dreamed I was eating chili at the Potato Shack.
When you're wearing a mask for so long and it's so hot, it's important to stay hydrated. A few restaurants will provide you with free cups of ice water if you ask, but not all locations have this. The ones that do have long lines of paying customers. Lines in general for food are pretty long, and not all the food establishments opens. Some of the actual inside sit-down restaurants are open though, and we went to one of these. There are only sitting guests at every other table. They're using paper menus that they dispose of after each guest, and they have paper straws, which is cool on DollyWood's part. At about 4 p.m., my mom went to 2 more shows, and my dad and I left the park. We were exhausted and needed to rest, and our resort was only about a mile away. So you can still exit and enter the park at your leisure, like before. Just instead, they don't stamp your hand while you're exiting. So be sure that you keep your paper ticket with you, as they scan this to let you back in. And also keep your pink wristband on, or you have to get your temperature checked again. During this time, my mom rode the merry-go-round. Since this was about 5 p.m., there was no wait at all. She got hand sanitizer getting on the ride, and then chose any horse she wanted. The middle 2 horses in the row of 4 were roped off for social distancing. Getting off of all the rides, they do have hand sanitizer by the exit that you can get if you want, but it's not mandatory like at the entrance of rides. She also rode the DollyWood Express, which is a train that takes you on a scenic ride around the park. They also tell you about the history of the park on the ride. My mom said here as well, they have every other row roped off, only seat 1 party per row, and they are very strict about reminding you to wear your mask during the ride. The attraction is typically 20 minutes long, but my mom said it took a very long time to actually get it started. She said they wiped down the entire train after each ride, and thinks they may only run 1 20-minute ride per hour instead of like 3 per hour in the past. My dad and I came back at 6 p.m., and honestly this was a great time to come to the park. In the morning it's hot and crowded, but in the afternoon or evening, it was about 10 degrees cooler, and a lot of people had left already, so the ride wait times were practically non-existent. While my mom waited to ride the train, my dad and I rode Daredevil Falls twice and Blazing Fury once.
Fire in the hole!
On all 3 of these rides, we got to walk right to the front of the line queue and only had to wait for 3 trains maximum. We wanted to ride in the front for Blazing Fury, so that was a little bit of a longer wait. Otherwise, we could have pretty much ridden in the middle and gotten on the first or second train. As mentioned earlier, they give you hand sanitizer before you get on the ride. On Daredevil's Falls, they only seat 1 party per boat, which normally can hold 8 people. For this ride in particular, it's okay if you take off your mask, because you're the only guests riding at one time, and me particularly, I didn't want my mask to get wet. On Blazing Fury, they seat 1 party per train car, or every other row. I also rode Tennessee Tornado and Wild Eagle without my parents. I rode both of these about 8 p.m., and there was absolutely no wait. Even with only 1 train running on Tennessee Tornado and 2 for Wild Eagle, I walked on, even got a front row seat, and rode the first available train. For these rides, I didn't want to wear my mask because I thought it might fall off. I got on Tennessee Tornado's line without a mask on. No one said anything, and I was able to ride the ride without wearing one. But on Wild Eagle, a ride attendant in the line told me to wear one and gave me a mask to wear during the ride. This was the only time I had an employee in the actual park tell me to wear a mask while on a ride, and it surprisingly didn't fall off when I was riding. Lastly, we got some refreshments before we left the park. I got a frozen strawberry lemonade, which was very good. The line for that wasn't long at all. At 9:40, they had a fireworks show to end the night, which was the first time this season that they've done that. Technically, the park was advertised as closing at 9:30, but I think this is the time that they stopped running the rides. Then at 9:40, they had fireworks, which launched from the open field near Wild Eagle, and the park guests can leisurely leave the park afterwards. My family left the park at 9:30, and then watched the fireworks from the tailgate of my dad's truck. We were parked in A lot, which we were able to find an open spot in when we came back at 6 p.m., and it was a very good view. Honestly, the park experience isn't that much different than normal. So if you're particularly at risk or scared of getting the virus, probably don't go. But if you're not overly worried, it should be fine. Yes, there are less people, and yes, you have to wear a mask, and the rides get cleaned more often and runs with less people. But because of that, ride wait times are sometimes about the same or even longer than normal, especially during the early morning, and there are some crowded areas where social distancing isn't happening. They do have a lot of signs reminding you to stay 6 feet apart and all, but the people don't always follow it, and employees aren't there reminding you or enforcing it. Most things are open in the park, with the exception of a few indoor attractions. If you want the best park experience, or you are worried about the larger crowds, I would say go in the evening. When my dad and I left the park and then came back in at 6 p.m., it was cooler, far less crowded, and there were practically no lines for rides. So, COVID-19 or not, coming in the evening was really nice. So in all, I felt the entire experience was about the same, as rides and shows and restaurants were still open, but with more signs, some restrictions, and you have to wear a mask. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. And to see full videos of some of the performances, check the card above and the description below. Thanks for watching. See you next video.